My body changed before I had the courage to beg for it. The crystal pulsed hot against my ribs, the chain cut cold across my skin, and somewhere beneath the cicadas and moonlight, the hard lines of me began to soften. I existed in the spaces between pen strokes, a phantom haunting my own skin, navigating a world where my reflection felt like a clumsy, heavy lie. I watched my hand move across the textured sketchbook page, where the graphite left a trail of sweeping arcs, forming the curve of a delicate shoulder and the intricate drape of a silk dress. On paper, I commanded an effortless elegance. In reality, the hand clutching the pencil felt clumsy, a crude instrument built for heavier labor. The knuckles appeared pronounced, the fingers thick and unyielding, and I stared at them, letting the pencil drop onto the paper. My wardrobe was a stiff, charcoal gray school uniform jacket worn over a simple white button-down, and the rigid tailoring squared my shoulders, projecting a stark masculinity that felt like a cage of heavy wool. The fabric chafed against my wrists, emphasizing the disconnect between my outward presentation and my gentle, artistic spirit. A breeze carried a pale pink drift of cherry blossoms from the park trees, depositing one fragile petal against the graphite woman I drew. Azura was a city of stunning contradictions. Above me, towering glass facades reflected the afternoon sun, while mere blocks away, vibrant green moss clung to ancient stone temples. A faint, electric tang of ozone lingered in the atmosphere, the city's quiet heartbeat of latent magic. Yet, amidst this beautiful world, I felt like a misplaced entity, a sketch drawn with the wrong proportions. A shadow fell over my lap, and I looked up to find my best friend, Ren, grinning down at me, holding 2 paper cups of iced tea. His bright energy acted as a sudden flare against my muted thoughts. He dropped onto the bench beside me, the wooden slats groaning under his uncontained movement, and pointed a finger at the book, noting I had been staring at the same page for 20 minutes. I closed the sketchbook, the heavy jacket of my uniform pulling tight across my shoulders as the rough wool felt suffocating. I offered a vague excuse, my voice ringing hollow in my own ears, and Ren offered a sympathetic nod, though his brow furrowed in concern. He had known me since we were children, scraping our knees on cobblestone alleys, and he could read the weather behind my eyes. He sensed the unspoken storm brewing there, even if neither of us possessed the vocabulary to name it. We left the park, navigating the winding paths that connect the modern thoroughfares to the older, twilight-steeped districts of the city. Ren kept up a continuous stream of stories about his chaotic siblings, his boisterous presence acting as a shield against the crushing crowds. I let his voice anchor my drifting focus as we passed street vendors hawking steamed spiced buns and glowing ferns harvested from the whispering woods, which cast a soft azure light against the darkening pavement. Despite his vibrant company, the persistent ache in my chest tightened its grip. It was a quiet morning for a shape I could not name, a hunger for a reflection I had never witnessed. Catching my silhouette in the mirrored facade of an apothecary, the glass showed a square, stoic figure encased in rigid, dark fabric. The reflection belonged to a stranger wearing my face, so I turned my head away, fixating on the uneven cobblestones beneath our shoes. Ren bumped his shoulder against mine, a grounding gesture that slowed his energetic stride, and asked what felt heavy today, calling out my tendency to retreat into a mental labyrinth. I offered a fragile smile, appreciating his protective instinct, and explained it was a sense of misplacement, akin to hearing a familiar song played a half-step off-key. Ren studied my expression, the bustling market noise fading into the background, and promised to listen whenever I figured out the tune. His loyalty served as a vital tether, keeping me from drifting into the void. We reached a fork in the road where the polished glass of the financial district yielded to the crumbling brick and twisted ironwork of Azura's forgotten corners. I told him I needed to wander the older streets for a bit in search of artistic inspiration, and he clapped a warm hand on my shoulder before heading toward the train station. Left alone, I let the narrow, labyrinthine alleys swallow my shadow. The ambient noise of the city dimmed, replaced by the hushed whispers of history as the air grew cooler, heavy with the scent of old paper and damp earth. I did not know what I was searching for in these twilight corners, only that my soul craved an undefined beauty, a hidden resonance that might one day mirror the silent, blooming desire within my heart. I walked with my shoulders hunched, trying to shrink my frame, wishing I could dissolve into the evening mist. My sketchbook sat heavy in my messenger bag, filled with graphite silhouettes of elegant, flowing figures, reflections of a grace I harbored inside but could never manifest in the mirror. A rusted chime shattered the stillness as I pushed open the warped door of a narrow, nameless antique shop where the air tasted of dried lavender, binding glue, and ancient paper. Floor-to-ceiling shelves sagged under the weight of tarnished brass astrolabes, cracked porcelain tea sets, and leather-bound grimoires. The proprietor, a hunched figure obscured by the gloom, did not bother looking up from a weathered ledger. I drifted through the narrow aisles, my fingers trailing over a dust-coated looking-glass, avoiding my own fractured reflection, before my gaze snagged on a tarnished velvet display case near the back corner. Nestled among dull iron rings and broken pocket watches sat a crystal locket. Encased in intricate, winding silver filigree resembling thorny vines, the teardrop-shaped stone possessed a cloudy depth. Yet, as I leaned closer, a faint, opalescent pink light pulsed within its core. A subtle, rhythmic vibration resonated through the glass counter, syncing with the erratic drumbeat in my chest. An undeniable gravity pulled at my center, a magnetism defying logic, and this object held an unspoken promise. It felt like a physical manifestation of the graceful truth I sought in my endless, clumsy drawings. I surrendered my meager allowance to the silent shopkeeper, grabbing the piece with trembling fingers. Stepping back into the twilight chill of the street, I lifted the delicate silver chain. The metal felt ice cold, but the crystal radiated an unnatural, comforting heat, and I clasped it around my neck, tucking it beneath my heavy sweater. A low, continuous thrum resonated against my collarbone, vibrating deep into my sternum. For a fleeting moment, the oppressive weight of my broad shoulders seemed to evaporate into the cool night air. The crescent moon cast long, skeletal shadows across my bedroom floor. Midnight had settled over Azura, drowning the distant city traffic beneath the ambient, rhythmic chorus of cicadas in the whispering woods. I sat on the edge of my mattress, bathed in the silver light pouring through the window panes. I stared down at my hands, resting on my knees. They remained large, calloused from charcoal pencils, heavy, masculine, and alien. A profound ache bloomed in my throat, the familiar sorrow of occupying a vessel built for a stranger. But the locket resting against my chest refused to let me spiral into my usual abyss. Since leaving the old quarter, the crystal's internal light had magnified with quiet persistence. It no longer pulsed. It shone with a continuous, mesmerizing luminescence, casting a pale, rose-tinted aura across the dark walls of my room. I reached up and wrapped my fingers around the teardrop stone. The heat intensified upon contact, searing past my skin and blooming within my rib cage like a swallowed star. A dizzying wave crashed through my senses, stealing the breath from my lungs. The bedroom walls blurred, melting into chaotic streaks of shadow and moonlight. The warmth spread outward from the locket, traveling down my arms, pooling deep in my hips, surging upward into my jawline. It was the sensation of profound, liquid remolding. I felt as if an invisible sculptor's hands were pressing, smoothing, and reshaping the dense clay of my form. My breath hitched, escaping as a soft gasp as the muscles beneath my skin shifted. They lost their dense, angular rigidity, softening and flowing into something unfamiliar, terrifying, yet right. The hum grew into a melodic roar in my ears, harmonizing with a surging euphoria I had never known. I squeezed my eyes shut, paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the physical alteration, bracing my trembling frame as the known world dissolved into pure, radiant light.
Next time on Resonance of Aeliana. When an antique crystal locket awakens, a blinding magical transformation melts away an 18-year lie. Staring into the mirror, a magnificent woman is reflected where he once stood, ending an agonizing internal war. But as dawn breaks, a terrifying new reality sets in. How will Ren and the rest of Azura react to this new, impossible truth? Discover what happens next, only on the next episode.